but somewhat somehow a young man, a bobbling, a collision injury in football, and boom, his life is sniffed out.
It's really sad that we're talking about, of course, a player who's just 21 years of age. It shows you the years of years he had, of course, playing football. As a matter of fact, I just see 21 as the stats for a professional footballer.
Absolutely.
And passing out at this time looks pretty sad because first of all, we're talking about the risks that are caused in sports particularly. I mean, you cannot, of course, overrule the risks that happens in sports, but when it happens severely to a point where you have to go through coma, and of course, you have to also go under some sort of, pressure, that shows how severe it is at the moment. And at this point, I lack words to actually use, particularly for the man, Billy Vega. I just wish, of course, may the soul of the departed rest in peace. And I pray that the family will be able to bear this particular loss because this is very heavy. Just a few months after Diogo Jota departed, and now we're having another casualty. It shows the risks that is actually, concerned with sports, irrespective of where you find yourself. Talk about tennis, talk about football, talk about basketball. There is every serious risk, and it shows that every professional, sportsman bears this risk and also understand the risk that is involved in sport before going into it. But what happens to Billy Vega is totally sad, and I just pray that the family will be able to bear this irreparable loss.
Well, Tor David has spoken it all, quite sad for the young man and the family, and we hope that they get all the condolences and be able to bear the loss. And quickly, let's switch gear before we return to talk about football. Let's switch gear and look at the China Open and the world of tennis in this one. It would be that Coco Gauff had to find a rhythm late defeating Rahimova in Beijing. Well, funny thing, I'll quite start with you now in the world of tennis. Coco Gauff now, she's struggling a bit, but finding the answers when it has to do with this one at the China Open, men I would say, because you begin to ask questions about consistency being a thing for Coco Gauff. But the other conversation is not the biggest of competition to think of, but she's adding up the number.
Well, I think this competition has a lot of superstars. Apart from Rita Zabalenka, who pulled out due to injury, we have top superstars in this particular competition. And looking at Coco Gauff, I think the past few competitions this particular year for her has been very, very, sad because she's always been struggling with that serve issue. But here she did not have any serve issues. In fact, she won the second set 6-love. So it shows how dominating she was. She had no problem whatsoever. And the good stat for her in this competition is that she has more wins in the Beijing competition than any other superstar, besides the likes of Zhang Qinwen and Kinete what's her name, Siniakova in this particular Beijing Open. So probably she'll be looking forward to trying to win. And she's the defending champion of this particular competition as well. So looking forward to see how she can defend the championship she won in the previous time out. The Beijing Open is just an opportunity for superstars to see how they can get up their ranking points and get a favorable seeded position ahead of the WTA finals, which is upcoming very soon in Jeddah. So definitely Coco Gauff, she's currently comfortable seeded at the top 5 of the WTA rankings, but probably she wants a better seed ahead of that particular WTA finals upcoming. So let's see what she can do. Maybe a run to the semi-finals or the finals, and she would get to better her ranking points before the end of the year.
Well, she gets to better her ranking point before the end of the year. Funny tonight, talking about it, the China Open is one of the biggest Open to talk about, the Masters, what it has to do with the Asian swing. A 1,000 Masters event in that direction. One of the big superstars are participating, and Coco Gauff was Lila Fernandez beating Sakari for the first time and advancing to Beijing a 3rd round. Well, to David, you got to have a bite on it. Many games are taking place right now when it has to do with the China Open of Beijing tournaments, but Fernandez somewhat somehow beating Maria Sakari.
Well, I think a good win for, Leila Fernandez, playing for the first time after being knocked out in the 3rd round by Irina Zabalenka way back in August, the US Open. Since then, we haven't, of course, had Leila Fernandez play again, and this is the first time she's playing, returning with, of course, a huge win. Back in 2022, she was actually in the top 3 of the WTA rankings, but at the moment, we're talking about Maria Sakari outside the top 50. As a matter of fact, world number 53. So it shows a drastic drop in form for Lady Sakari at the moment. And for Leila Fernandez, I just wish she, of course, continues from here because when you stay put, when you stay out of competition since early last month up until now, we've had, I think, about 2 top-level competitions, and she hasn't participated. Maybe there could also be concerns of match rustiness and the level of momentum she has now heading to, of course, the 1,000 Masters event. But I think at the moment she is actually, going pretty well. and I just wish she continues with this momentum going even forward.
Amanda Wish is talking about continuing with the momentum going forward, and now we switch gear and move from China to Tokyo. Well, this time out of Tokyo Open will be a 500 tour level event, and still big superstars are featuring in this one. A part of a conversation with the likes of Yannick Sinner surviving injury scare in Tokyo, a debut, and the likes of Carlos Alcaraz surviving injury scare, and the likes of Yannick Sinner also kick-starting the Beijing Open, a Beijing redemption run with a Silic win. Well, Kasparov also defeating Wildcat Mochizuki. It's that conversation. Let's get the details of it, shall we? What we talk about, some of the big guys that we've been looking forward to in this one at the Tokyo tournament in Japan. Part of it, what we're talking about, Yannick Sinner, he's added the number, and we're talking about Carlos Alcaraz beating Sebastian Baez, the Argentine international, a 6-4, a 6-2 victory. We're done with the women's game. Let's talk about the men's game then. Well, Carlos Alcaraz starting out quite well. Fonitina, well, as expected, not surprising for many, especially at the 500 tour level event. He's debuting at this event in Tokyo, not featured before, the first time in it now, but a clean slate, you must say, against Sebastian Baez of Argentina, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2 victory for Carlos Alcaraz.
Well, not as clean as you would have liked because of the injury scare that came with it, because now he has to be very careful going forward in this particular competition. It's very, very concerning because it's just the early stages of it. When you have such an injury scare in the round one, it becomes an even deeper concern for you and your medical team, because you still have yards of game to play in this particular competition. So for Carlos Alcaraz, the lead over Yannick Sinner is just a meager 2,950 points, and this is a 500 level competition, and he is trying to see how he can extend that gap before the end of the year, because it's still possible for Yannick Sinner to usurp the man as the world number one. So we're still seeing that rivalry between Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner, even when they are not facing each other. It's still a battle between both of them for the world number one spot. And Carlos Alcaraz, just like you said, his very first game, in Tokyo. So looking forward to seeing how he can win it, because 12 other world number ones have all won this competition. So Carlos Alcaraz will be looking forward to joining them as one of the elite players to win the Tokyo Open.
Well, talking about elite players, and that moment you saw there on your screen, Carlos Alcaraz on the ground being checked by the medics, and possibilities of what could happen if there's an injury or not, but finished the game at the end of it, a 6-4, a 6-2 victory. And well, Yannick Sinner also, as Fofana spoken about, with the challenges that comes with it, trying to see if he can secure this 500 points from the tour level event. Also got a victory in this one against Silic. The likes of Hogeron also beating that opponent in this one, 7-6, 6-1, and the likes of Bex against Tabilo getting victory. Kasparov, fourth-seeded player, against qualifying this one, lost the first set but found a way to win a second, 6-1, 6-1 victory for the big superstars. And now let's talk about the conversation in the world of sports. Quickly now to athletics, it would be about Toby Amosun, a Nigerian superstar, record holder when it has to do with World Championship in the 100 meters event. Finished second at the last diamond event, is worthy of talking about a conversation. And Toby Amosun keeps rising and now ranked third in the world rankings. Well, to be David, we've seen other Nigerians finding their balance after a performance at the Athletics Championship. And now Toby Amosun, after bagging the silver medal, ranked 11 in the ranking.
Well, I think it's deserving.
Third, rather, in the ranking.
Yeah, deserving, I must say, particularly for Toby Amosun. The only, of course, athletes from Nigerian contingent who won a medal in the just concluded Athletics Championship, which was the bronze medal. And that shows you, the quality of the lady. Also leaving a mark, particularly on track.
She rose from number 9 to number 3.
To number 3. And then you're also talking about the build-up to the World Athletics Championship. Several diamond leagues in the United States and other countries. She also, of course, participated in it as well. And I think the meteoric rise didn't even start now. I mean, I think last year we were talking about the All-Africa Games, where she also, left her mark as well, won so many medals in the All-Africa Games. And at the moment, it is about continuity for Toby Amosun. I think she's actually leading now for all the Nigerian athletes to follow. The exemplary, of course, life she's also living, not just anywhere but on the track. is something other Nigerians should follow at the moment. The biggest name you could also think of, as it has to do with 100-meter heat, particularly on the continent of Africa. And I think what she's doing at the moment, of course, shows in the rankings. And I think that particular ranking is deserving.
Well, for the other conversation is not just about the rankings, the progress, looking forward to further competition and what Nigerians can take a cue from this. We've seen the ranking point moving to 1,430 points and moving in behind United States Grace Stark, who tops the ranking and newly crowned world champion. We talk about Detaji Kambunji of Switzerland, who sits second. Toby Morrison, it seemed like at some point we're talking about she getting older and struggling a bit, but a ranking based on her performances and based on the races, the event that she participates, you see, now ranked number 3 in the world. Simply amazing, you put it that way. But let's take a cue at other athletes in Nigeria, likes of Ezekiel Daniel was standout on the movers latest update, 22 years, 400 meters hurdle, and we've seen the numbers count for him in Nigeria. Record a 5-time during the 2025, climbing to 59th from 59 to 15 in the overall ranking. It's almost surprising when you perform well at major competition. Come on, it gets to show in your ranking. A progress for Nigeria here.
Definitely, I think it's progress for Nigeria when you want to look at the likes of the news. Not just Ezekiel Nathaniel and Toby Amuso. We also talk about Kaisola Ajayi, who is outside the top 100, but still he made lots of jumps up the ranking. Talk about the overall rankings in athletes. It's not just for their sport. When you look at in their sports, Ezekiel Nathaniel is in the top 20 in his sport, so still something very, very commendable for him. Kaisola Ajayi as well, Israel Okon, every athlete who represented Nigeria at the World Championship.
Chukwuemeka and Nokechi
exactly,
also
so
aging into a global top 100, now ranked 99th overall after finishing 5th at the World Championship, where he gained 250 points to bring his total to 1,373.
Definitely. So it's just about when you do the right things, just like I always say, you'd always get the right result. That's what happened for Nigeria. And just imagine we get to go to the Olympics and then we have our athletes winning medal, silver or whatever, bronze. You definitely keep climbing up the rankings. And that's what I expect from Nigerian athletes in the coming years.
All right. Before we get to talk about football stories, let's look a bit into this now. And now we've seen the rise from that performance at the World Championship. Question would be, what have we learned from it? Or what do we need to do to move even further and see the better performance of these athletes? What are those concerns that shadow the performance of these athletes before the World Championship? We saw Toby Morrison talk about the kids on social media. It wasn't a good image for the AFN, Athletics Federation of Nigeria. And with, the big one now would be, what's her name now, that Favor Offelida moved to Turkey. A bit concerning. What do we learn from this? How do we improve the setup? What changes are you looking at from the AFN and the athletes themselves?
Well, first of all, I think it has to do with the Athletics Federation, particularly, just like I've always said over time. I mean, if you have athletes who are doing quite well, even under poor conditions, it certainly means they can do better under good conditions. I mean, look at the recently concluded World Athletics Championship. Over 3 Nigerian athletes or more made it to the finals of their respective categories. Udodi Huzurike also made it to the 200-meter heat finals. Unfortunately, couldn't make podium finish. Nathaniel Ezekiel finished 4th in the final. Unfortunately, couldn't make podium finish. Toby Amusan, of course, made the final. He now hits that 100-meter heat.
It's got to be better than just reaching the finals.
Yeah, he's got to be better, no doubt about that. But also looking at the way forward now for Nigerian athletes.
That's where, how do we get them to win medals beyond getting to the finals?
Yeah, it is basically about, of course, I think the FN also have a part to play in this, because beyond the international, competitions we're having, for these athletes, where basically you get to see the FN, achieve, athletes better. Few weeks to the start of this competition, I think we ought to do better in terms of, finances for these athletes. I mean, yeah, that training, individually, that training, they also have coaches. Before we even talk about competition and representing Nigeria, how are we treating these athletes? I think it's a major concern, and we should also take example from Favor of Philly going even forward. And I think the athletes themselves have to also stay fit by also, competing, not just necessarily representing Nigeria, but individually competing at competitions.
No one should be advising them to do that anyway.
Yeah.
It's part of the game to know that.
I think in all of
without that, it can be a top athlete.
Absolutely. So in all of these, you could also, have Nigeria make better representation in all the athletics competition?
All right, our conversation is all about having better representation in all athletics competition moving forward. Talking about Team Nigeria and what we're looking at for the competition taking place. We saw the World Championship, lessons to be learned from it. And we're looking at a bigger picture for the competition and tournament taking place, and indeed also looking at the Olympics in the nearest future. What we learned from it has the Athletics Federation of Nigeria also learned from it, and athletes themselves have learned from it. It was a place of sponsorship and funding, and the place of the fans. It's all encompassing for everyone to put hands on deck and get the answers to the ball questions that are being asked in the world of athletics in Nigeria. And here we've got a quick break, and when we're back here with a conversation about football stories around the world. The numbers counting differently for some of the sides. Super Eagles, we can talk about the Flying Eagles in this one. The Under-17 Championship, the WAFUB tournament taking place. It would be all encompassing on the CAF Champions League. Remo Stars playing today, and all the games that took place in Europe. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back at the show, Sports Central. My name is Badru. Devin Funnyton has showed me for company. Guys are going nowhere. We're sticking together till we finish this one. And we get to talk about football stories around the world, the excitement of it, and how potent football is. Well, the fans know it. Everyone knows. But football, here we go. And now let's begin a conversation in the world of football from the international friendlies. We're looking forward to the Super Eagles of Nigeria. We here are to face Colombia. Well, they'll be facing Colombia at the City Field in New York on Tuesday, 18th November. We also hear that this is a preparation looking forward to the Nations Cup, and that'll be taking place later this year. Well, the position also would be that Super Eagles of Nigeria face Venezuela at the Blue Energy Stadium in Houston in another friendly 4 days before the friendly against Colombia. Well, the third ever meeting between both countries. Colombia will also take on New Zealand in Fort Lauderdale on November 15th before the clash with Nigeria. Both games are part of a preparation for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations taking place in Morocco. Well, Timber David, quickly just have a bite. Fun hasn't spoken a lot of stuff in fun in this one. Just have a bite in this one. You think these are quality friendlies for the Super Eagles of Nigeria ahead of the AFCON? I mean, I would have said maybe they put in a friendly with an African nations before that, but they've been playing lots of qualifiers with African nations.
Well, that's also something to look at for, because also in October we're going to have the Super Eagles against Lesotho and Benin Republic, so definitely still African team, so you could also use that
maybe a tough African team.
Oh, well, I think that's why we have Morocco lined up. So
yeah.
Playing Morocco, I think, is also going to be something to look out for, because you never can tell. Morocco, for me, I feel they're the best team in Africa at the moment since 2022 when they reached the semi-finals of the World Cup. I look at them as the best team in Africa. And I feel
are we playing Morocco? I think we're playing Colombia, Venezuela.
There are talks between the Morocco and FA.
Okay, it's not happened yet, so we can't really postulate and say, okay, we're playing Morocco.
Well, I think it's a good thing to have at least talks behind the scene. At least you know the NFF are actually working. Well, talks are that the Moroccan NFF are the ones who are approaching the NFF ahead of that particular friendly. So it's from the Moroccan side, not the Nigerian side.
Well, what are the gains in terms of is it one that we now look at it where they have new players to join the side before the AFCON, or you're satisfied with the players that couldn't qualify Nigeria for the World Cup, because as it stands, most likely they won't qualify for the World Cup? Same set of players, same coach going to the Nations Cup. What change are you expecting at the Nations Cup?
Well, I think personally for me, the friendly matches in November is not enough to try start as running players ahead of the start of the AFCON, because the AFCON starts in December.
But the argument is, we've seen this set of players now. Yeah. Yes, you can say the best Nigeria's gotten, Victor Osimhen and the rest of them, and they've not been able to qualify Nigeria for the WAFCON.
Yeah.
What are you preparing next?
Well, I think I'll still stick with the players because bringing in new players definitely means they have to, of course, also understand the demands that comes with playing with the national team.
We've talked about the introduction of younger players to the team.
No,
We've seen a few young players be part of it. I remember the game against South Africa at Bloemfontein. We saw Uche Chrysanthus come in and did quite well in it. I'm very beginning to question if they've been given more opportunity. Maybe the Super Eagles might not have been in this now. Fisaya Delabashir also. Probably new others, a few others, a pocket player. Frederick also came in, was a starter defense. So if you had maybe two other small young boys who are ready, energetic to be part of Super Eagles, it could be a game changer for them going to the Nations Cup. We don't think so.
It's a good idea, no doubt about that. Now, what I was saying initially is the fact that the players he's actually, of course, called up to the national team recently have to be retained if they're doing well in the build-up to the AFCON. And not just, of course, bringing in new names who haven't played at the national team.
The argument is, we've seen the build-up to the AFCON, which was a qualifiers, definitely. They've not done well.
Now, the question is now, if you're bringing in new players, you also understand the fact that you have to give them time to acclimatize to the national team before going to a major tournament. The likes of Chrysanthus, Uche, Benjamin Fredericks, yes, we could also know that.
They didn't need time, but they hit the ground running.
This is the AFCON we're talking about.
Well, this is the Super Eagles we're talking about.
You have two friendly matches before the AFCON. So are you trying to bring new players who just run
Maybe you're worried because I said maybe two young players, maybe one at least add to the team. Well, for the team, I don't know where you stand on this now, but it's the Super Eagles of Nigeria. You see the team, and many would say the AFCON is a different ball game. They can't go out and perform just like the last time I missed the World Cup. I went to the final of the AFCON, but now World Cup qualifies the precedence to the AFCON. Can this team perform at the AFCON?
I'll bring Morocco as a case study. Look at what happened to the Moroccan national team. It was almost a clear overhaul. Brought in new set of
young stars in it, absolutely.
So I feel Nigeria will not be so bad if we intend to toe the line. We're already having a steady decline in our football. We've not qualified for the World Cup 2 consecutive years. This year's about to start again.
Well, let's not say we've not qualified. We're about not to qualify. Keep it at that. Lots of things happen in football, you never can tell. Because South Africans here, they're going to be so happy. I said it's over anyway. But it seemed like it's almost over for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Well, let's quickly talk about our conversation now. It wouldn't be the Super Eagles of Nigeria. It would be the WAFU Under-17 tournament taking place. And Manu said that the team, the Golden Eaglets, would be stronger. Well, they're preparing and hoping that they get to the semi-finals of the WAFU B competition. They're taking on Burkina Faso next in Group B. After that, if they beat Burkina Faso, depending on the result, they'll be going to the quarterfinals of it. And those qualifying the next semi-finals of it, those qualifying to the next round would be prepared to qualify for the AFCON 2026 Africa Under-17 Cup of Nations in that direction. They had beaten that open in Benin Republic 4-1, and the coach is saying, don't worry, we're ready to do it, and you'll have better performance going further. Well, part of this conversation, there's a conversation, yes, let's skip, we'll talk about Remo Stars a bit, but let's talk about Ali Subaru at talking about the games that are taking place now, preparation towards the World Cup, Under-20 World Cup. Well, the coach of Asad, Ali Zubairo, they've completed the 12-day training camp with 2 warm-up games, and part of the warm-up games was a draw against Chile, and they were able to beat Australia. They scored 4 goals in the proceedings, and the coach has already come out to speak tough and saying, well, they've corrected the mistake they've had. Remember, at the Nations Cup, Under-20 Nations Cup in Egypt, they got to the semi-finals, but one complaint was they weren't scoring goals. Went to the WAFB competition. Similarly, were beaten in the finals by Cote d'Ivoire, weren't scoring enough goals. Nigerians are worried, and the coach is saying, don't worry, we've solved that problems. We scored 4 goals, 4 different players are scoring 4 goals during the warm-up games.
I think I won't be blown about the fact that they were able to score more than 2 goals past their opponent in the last friendly match they had. I think
against Australia, 3-0.
I think that's why Ali Zubair is actually looking forward at the moment, because the first time friendly they had in Chile, they drew 1-1 as a matter of fact. So I wouldn't actually stick my claim on the fact that they had defeated their opponent 3-1. And I think that the goal scoring problems have been reduced at the moment. I think when the competition starts properly, that's where we'll get to know whether or not Ali Zubair have addressed those problems, because that's the business end of the tournament. However, we hear that they've actually arrived in the town rather, where they will be having those matches played. So by next week, the under-20 side will definitely play, and from there we'll know whether or not they're ready for the tournament.
I will get to know if they're ready for the tournament. They're in Group F alongside Norway, Saudi Arabia, and Colombia. Well, you see what the indices could be for them moving forward. They opened that campaign against Norway on Monday, September 29th, and before facing Saudi Arabia 3 days later and concluding that group stage against Colombia on October 5th. I don't find it so we want to talk about it, but before we talk about it, let's have a different conversation with you. And what better game that will be taking place at the MK Abiola Stadium today in the CAF Champions League preliminary stage. We're talking about Zilimajo of Comoros taking on Remo Stars. Zilimajo are home team now, but they're playing at Remo Stars or home ground, so it seems like Remo Stars are playing both legs at home. Not good. I don't know how CAF gets to decide on these things, but it's not fitting for me. Come on, because you're giving an undue advantage to one team. That's it.
CAF didn't press the stadium for Zilimajo. They decided they want to play in Nigeria.
But it's not fair. CAF shouldn't accept it.
Yeah, we're also looking at...
The team want to play that,
no,
so.
it doesn't matter. It's not fair for football.
How many approved countries do we have that have stadiums on the continent?
Yeah, they can go to another place. It doesn't have to be Remo Stars that they're facing. Probably, maybe cost could be a problem. So I think if I get to Nigeria, play against Remo Stars, instead of traveling somewhere else, I just play again. But come on, it's not good for football.
Talk about Comoros, they're not really known in football. So.
It's also the same thing that's happening with Zimbabwe.
It's an island match.
Their World Cup qualifying in South Africa.
And it's not fitting. It's not right. It's not right for playing football.
It's a big call now.
Yeah.
Rather than traveling to play in other countries, fix your stadiums and play there. Nobody's forcing you to come to Nigeria. You're actually looking at the cost of transportation.
They could have played in Benin Republic or somewhere else. I don't know. Well, maybe no stadium in Benin Republic. To quite a sad story for. Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm more concerned about what happens after Rebel Stars get the better of Zilimajo and how they're going to face Mamelodi Sundowns.
Absolutely.
I'm very concerned because I don't understand this.
It's worthy of having the concern for. We know that.
This is a team who've reached the finals 2 times back to back.
So and they're playing preliminary stage of the competition.
Why are they playing just like Real Madrid getting to face a team like Alcaraz or Karabakh? You don't do that.
Personally, I do not even buy the idea of having preliminary stages. It should be. I think I should actually look at the coefficients rankings and maybe work with that. The lowest ranked, teams or the lowest ranked countries in terms of CAF coefficients ought to be playing the preliminary. That's a qualifier, just like we have in Europe.
That's why we're having the first preliminary and the second preliminary before we get to the.
All the teams are playing the preliminaries. Why?
No, it won't be all the teams.
Because I look at the likes of I look at Mamelodi Sundowns. They ought not to be playing here. I mean, Egyptian Giants are still playing the preliminary games.
They're playing the second phase of it.
That's what I'm saying. They ought not to be playing.
The other argument
for the tournament.
The other argument from CAF would be this now, because maybe you look at the scheduling and the breach number of teams you want to have, and they're also the reason they're having
they
still
have the numbers. This is it now. It's very simple. The lowest ranked teams in the nations that have actually qualified to the CAF Champions League or the CAF Confederation Cup. It's simple. Just match them together, divide them into different groups, just the way you're doing now. They play the preliminary stage and face the other opponent to automatically qualify, just like it's done in Europe.
All right, we'll talk about it. Many would argue that the essence of all of this is to give more opportunity to smaller teams to compete, especially at the early space of it before getting to the group stage. Maybe you get to expand the group stage to involve all the teams, but preliminary, always going to be preliminary. Good thing is CAF is giving them some good money at least to suffice if you do not qualify for the group stages. So Fonitina is able to wonder what could happen for Remo Stars facing
it means
next.
Remo Stars may just be booted out and
they will be booted out.
That's what it means.
Well,
shouldn't be playing the preliminary stage.
And they're Nigerian champions, are they not?
Exactly. So they are a big team. So why?
So Remo Stars, because there are lots of other big teams in Africa. Yeah, that's what the conversation is.
See the likes of Black Bulls in the Champions League get there and be beaten 4-0.
But they also play the qualifiers,
and they qualify to have an easier draw now. Remo Stars unfortunately have a tougher draw.
It's you saying it's all about what it is. Let's see what happens anyway. As we set to close, William Saliba has agreed a new 5-year Arsenal deal. It's a conversation to look for. And Rion Gomoha has signed first a Liverpool pro contract after breakthrough. Just 17 years of age, a Spain legend. Sergio Busquets said he'll be retiring at the end of the MLS season. Sergio Busquets has won 9 La Liga titles. He's won the World Cup with Spain in 2010 and moving forward the 2012 European Championship. He's won 3 Champions League and he's doing the magic join Messi, but the man is saying, I'm tired. Sadly, we don't have time to talk about Sergio Busquets. Aston Villa were able to beat Bologna for the first win of the season in the UEFA Europa League opener. Well, they've not scored more than 2 goals in 12 of the last 18 matches. The conversation for them, the first win the season for them. And meanwhile, in the AFL Cup, again, talking about the European League, gang age pass, 10-man Rangers, took power pressure on boss Russell Martin and Barcelona rally to beat Real Oviedo as Rashford returns. So lineup is Bayern Munich versus Werder Bremen takes place today as we close. First time, this is the first time for Barcelona after trailing in the first half in Oviedo. The first time they're getting a victory in their history. And it took a massive speech from Hansi Flick for the guys to turn things around, telling them to move the ball faster. 11 times they've lost and only 1 time was a draw in Oviedo when they were down, trailing. And that draw was in 1945. So a big record they've created getting a victory in Oviedo.
Adolf Hitler was still alive by that time. It's a new Barcelona, new Real Oviedo. different quality.
All right. Thank you guys. It was David.
A pleasure.
Oh, for Tina, thank you.
Always.
You had to bring out the feed line this. Well, it's basically what it is. My name is Bladon Kim. Thank you for being a part of it. We say have a lovely weekend.